All right, today we have Randall Gregory with us. She's a Clark Atlanta grad. Randall, I'm going to start somewhere that I don't usually start. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first app that you open?
Of Instagram.
Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, give the audience a quick synopsis of who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So as you all know, my name is Randall Gregory. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I graduated from Clark Atlanta University. I actually studied biology, but I also have a love for poetry and art and all of those kind of things. So I took a leap of faith and decided that I wanted to publish a book. And so now I'm in this realm of poetry, and now I'm here today. I'm a proud HBCU alum. So here I am.
All right. Now, why did you choose an HBCU?
One of my sisters actually went to Howard University, so I always was like, "Ooh, HBCUs are so special," and I just love the history behind HBCUs, and I just felt like that is really something that I wanted after high school, and I just love everything that it represents. So I just felt like it was fitting for me to go to an HBCU.
Right. Now, why did you choose Clark?
When I got there, I just felt like it was where I needed to be. I actually was looking at Central State at some point, but I just was like, I like it, but it's not everything I want it to be. But when I got to Clark, I just met so many different people and then just the environment that I was in. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is the school. So Clark Atlanta showed me love. They just everything I really needed and had wanted or I had imagined. So I just chose Clark and Clark chose me.
Now, what was your HBCU experience like?
You have to learn how to have a really good balance with having just such a living in a big city with a lot of black excellence on a regular. But I absolutely love my HBCU experience. As we all know, HBCU experience is unlike any other, and the learning that I had, the friendships that I made, the events that I attended, the connections that I ended up making, it's just so amazing. It doesn't seem real unless you do it, like I know you have, but my HBCU experience, I love it to this day, and I'm grateful. And I hope for medical school I can go to HBCU as well.
Right, right, makes sense. Now, when did you first fall in love with poetry?
Mm. I think I fell in love with poetry. I might have been maybe around 10. I didn't write poetry or anything like that, but I just really loved it. And I just always was kind of in love with words and the way people spoke. But I never really thought that I could write poetry or I had a talent for it. But as I aged, I kind of found out that I could do it too.
Do you remember the first poem that you wrote?
Mm. It probably did not have a name for sure. It definitely didn't have a name. I kind of like remember this poem I wrote when we had still like those big desktop screen computers with the old keyboards. I definitely remember typing it. So I wrote some old random poem.
Do you think writing is a talent or a skill?
I think writing is both a talent and a skill. I think that you have to write or work to get better or know some of the things that makes good writing. You have to have that in your head or kind of use some of those skills to make yourself better and constantly doing it. But also you do have that natural ability or talent of whatever your niche is or whatever skills you really have naturally that are just innate. So definitely, I think like writing is definitely hard. So it's definitely you need those skills, but definitely if you have that talent, if you channel both of them,
How do you become a better writer?
I think you become a better writer by definitely doing daily practices. I know for even just me, I try to write different topics that I wasn't used to writing about, or even if I was Googling them and looking like, oh, someone said write a topic about that and making practice because then you kind of learn how to give yourself this free flow of things that maybe you don't really think about in a sense. So definitely that constant practice. I also think becoming a better writer is part of showing people your work. So definitely the constant writing and working towards getting better and just getting making your skill better.
Makes sense. Tell me about your book, Chasing the Roots of My Heritage.
All right. Chasing the roots of my heritage is this amazing poetry book that I wrote. I want to say it's the first HBCU poetry book that honors the HBCU experience, while I weaved in actually the topics of being Black in America and just resilience and so much more, because I really wanted it to be a story to use that we attend. So Chasing Roots My Heritage just pulls on so many pieces of the Black experience, or just our Blackness and education and everything that we are.
Walk me through that process of writing a book. Did you have a strategy and say, I'm going to outline it, I'm going to write it like this? Or are you writing pieces and taking different things from different parts of your life? Walk me through that entire process.
It's definitely a different process, because it's like I always felt like I don't know where to start. That was kind of always my problem with the book. It was like, oh, where do I start? What's good enough? Or what should I include and what should I include? So one of the main things I did when I first started to when I decided on just the overall topic of the book, because it didn't have a title of the book yet either, just what I wanted to talk about. So I actually wrote down, since mostly I wanted it to be about an HBCU, I tried to think back of all the different years of my life at an HBCU, and what were all the things that happened that were cool, that are common amongst like all HBCUs. And I typed up that list first. So that's the first thing I did to even see. And then highlighting the main things that I really thought would impact people, like for people that actually went to HBCUs or people that don't know about HBCUs, like what are these main pieces that people need to hear? So once I kind of outlined that, it was just here and there. Some days I was tell myself, hey, I'm going to write a poems about these topics today and see what happens. Some poems would be, I'm just sitting here randomly, and then there's this poem coming to me, and I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. Let me keep writing this. Let me keep writing. After that, I kind of, once I had my full list of poems that I committed to, which was a lot of poems, it was like 72 poems. But at first, I told myself it was going to be 50. Then I decided it was going to be 72 once I finished counting them. So once I kind of did that, I kind of figured out what order to kind of put the book in and what would flow and what story did I want it to tell. So that's kind of the process of me writing it and putting it all together. And of course, back and forth editing constantly, like, oh, this is good. Oh, no, let's change this line, or really making sure it impacts people and people understand it.
Now, how does the publishing process go? Do you decide self-publish? Do you go a real publishing route? Tell me how your thought process went into that, and then what it takes to go through the whole publishing process.
I actually self-published because it was a HBCU poetry book. I just felt like a lot of um, publishing companies wouldn't really understand the purpose behind the book, or really wouldn't understand what the book is, to the point that they would be like, oh, I don't really get that. We're not going to put that out, or for someone to really kind of really tailor what I want to say and tailor my truths and really what I want to say about Blackness. So I never really had the plan to have a publisher at the time. I have applied to a couple things for like just certain poems, and they take 8 months to get back to you just to tell you, oh no, we're not going to choose you. I don't have 8 months, 12 months to wait for someone to validate what I want to write. If I have the avenue to do it, I was like, I'm doing it. Or maybe in the future, this will be great in the future for someone. I just was like, I'm self-publishing. This is what I want to put out in the world, and that's what I'm going to do.
Makes sense. A lot of people are going to self-publish around. You have full
Yeah,
control over everything, and with the internet, you just push a couple buttons and it's on Amazon.
exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's the great thing about Google and YouTube. You learn a lot.
Yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
oh, I can do this self-publishing now. Because before that really wasn't available for all of us to just simply self-publish. But now in the world we live in today, you can do it.
And if you think about it, the publishers, they had the leverage of having the relationships with the Barnes and Nobles. Barnes and Nobles isn't around anymore. So where's the real leverage?
Exactly.
That
Right. We
makes
don't even need Barnes and Noble anymore. We don't need them. People aren't even going to Barnes and Noble. No one's worried about that. And the thing is, it's like you have an avenue of using Amazon, man. Everybody buys stuff off Amazon all the time,
yeah,
every day. So
especially
that's
if
just perfect.
you're right. Especially you have that Prime, you just
Oh
You almost
yeah, you
every
ready for it?
right. What good came out of the pandemic for you? Was there something that you started to do? Did you start meditating because you were at home more? What anything good come out of this? Any good habits or anything?
Definitely, of course, my book was definitely a pandemic decision for sure. I think other than that, definitely just trying to be consistent with making myself better, praying more, and just kind of focusing on me. Definitely, the pandemic helped me get focused with this master's because what I started this past August with my master's. The pandemic has kind of brought some of those things out and really just tapping into myself and just everything that makes me happy.
Right. I don't know if you have kids or not, but if you do have kids, will they have to go to an HBCU?
I do not have kids, but I absolutely feel as though my kids need to go to an HBCU. The thing is, I don't care which HBCU. I don't care which HBCU, but an HBCU is a must. So I definitely want to raise children that see HBCUs on a regular so they can honor them and respect them and really know what they're about. So honestly, I hope the automatic thing is they want to go to one naturally because of the way I teach them or the way I praise HBCUs. I hope one of them go to Clark, but beyond that, please go to HBCU. That's what I want.
All right. Makes sense. How can people get in touch with you and purchase the book?
So people can contact me through my poetry Instagram. So it's RSG underscore to poetry. And if they want a signed copy, they can actually order through me. If not, they can just order off Amazon and you can look up my name, Randall Simone Gregory, on Amazon, or you can look up Chasing the Roots of My Heritage and you absolutely will see it on Amazon.
Okay. Sounds good. What feedback have you received so far from people that have read your book?
People love it, and that just makes me feel so wonderful. So I've had people that actually went to HBCUs that have read it, and I've had people that haven't went to HBCUs, and so many people actually have told me like, "I always want to go to HBCU and I never went to one." And it just gives me all those feelings that I wish I could have had. And so that's always positive. I know someone's daughter was going to go to HBCU, and unfortunately, she did not make the decision to go to HBCU. But her mother said if she had that book at the time, they would have actually made that decision to for sure go to HBCU. So I've had very, very positive um, reviews from it. I'm so happy to hear different people's favorites because, obviously I'm the author, so I have my own favorites. Other people have their favorites. So I'm like, oh, you like that poem? So that just really makes me excited. So I just want to continue to get it out there to everybody or get it out there to other hands so they can experience it and love it and read it because I put a lot into there. I know some of my friends were like, I didn't know you could write that well. And it's like, I've been trying to tell you that, but I'm glad you enjoy it. And then, of course, my friends that I actually went to college with, they just love it so much. They're just like, wow, this is really our lives that we lived. I'm like, yeah, that was the goal.
All right. That's awesome. What else do
Hmm.
you want our audience to know?
What do I want my audience to know? I think this is a great book that's impactful. You don't have to have went to an HBCU to love it, to experience it. You don't have to be black to love it and experience it. But I think it definitely gives insight to our lives and how we feel and how how the education is and just what a HBCU, the holistic of it, because I think sometime in society, they try and put HBCUs down or they try to say like homecoming is the only special thing about a HBCU when we're everything and then some. And HBCUs educate so many Black people, and we are just so amazing. So I just really want people to know that HBCUs are so essential to our culture, and I am so thankful to have went to an HBCU. And
Sounds good. Thank you, Randall. I really appreciate you taking the time to
of
talk to us.
course,
Best of luck with everything. Now, you're on a journey, and I read somewhere that you want to open your own children's hospital one day.
I do. That is my main goal. My main goal is to open the first, hopefully the first, but it doesn't have to be the first Black owned children's hospital. But that is my goal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're here to root you on during your journey, and we really wish you the best, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate you for having me.